7 o'clock p.m., Monday, October 15th, 2018. I call the regular meeting of the Waverly City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Bergen.
Here.
Drinkow.
Here.
McKenzie.
Here.
Rafi. Here. Waldstein. Here. Kangas and Scher are both absent.
Yes, both excused absences. I'd like to welcome Chris Meyer from St. Paul's back as our guest council person.
Thank you.
And all of the junior high students that are here on special assignment. So I hope they don't get bored and decide to walk out early. But no, it's great to have you all here and see what goes on. And if you've got some questions along the line, raise your hand and we'll try and answer them. So I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor of the agenda as presented, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes. Motion for September 24th, 2018 and October 1st, 2018 minutes.
Move approval of both of those minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. This is a public hearing. This is the date, time, and place for a public hearing pursuant to Iowa Code Section 364.7 on the FBO agreement with Sweeter Aircraft Services Incorporated. I would open the public hearing and entertain any comments from anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to that. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Entertain a motion.
I will move Resolution 18-151, a resolution approving the lease provisions within the previously approved Airport Fixed-Based Operator FBO agreement for the Waverly Municipal Airport.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Resolution 18-151 is approved. 502 absent. Public comments. Anyone in the audience from our guests that have something to talk about that's not on the agenda?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Matthew Schneider, Waverly resident, Ward 5. I have great news. We are announcing the formation of Keep the U.S. Moving. I co-founded this national group with John Russo of Playa del Rey, California, after learning that we have a national public safety emergency with these road diets. John and his team at Keep LA Moving have successfully taken on Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and the LA political machine and stopped or reversed 6 of these road diets. But these poorly researched road diets, which are spreading quickly, are increasing travel times, killing business, polluting the air, impoverishing, dividing, and demoralizing our communities. While all of that's bad, we found a uniting effort. People from all walks of life, from all political spectrums, are coming together. We have board members from both sides of the coast and members from all around the country who want to make their communities better. I've talked to Mayor Wiese and many residents in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, where they have passed a resolution to put Stanley Street on a road diet. Over 80% of the residents oppose this there, including every single business on Stanley Street. Stanley is an emergency service corridor that connects the city to I-39. Mayor Wiese and the citizens are concerned, but they're up against an 8-3 council. I've talked to residents and businesses in Sunnyside, Queens, New York, who cannot get Mayor de Blasio to understand that the fire trucks and ambulances cannot get emergency vehicles onto road-dieted Skillman Avenue. My friend Mindy sent me a video that captures the horror on video while they drop their kids off at school. This video's up on the Waverly Town Hall page. What kind of message does this send to our kids? We must stand behind our firefighters, police, and emergency service personnel. We want to make our streets safer and better for everybody. We want bicycle lanes on safer, less traveled neighborhood streets. I have 3 studies that I will be submitting to public file later this week. I'll have them down at the poorhouse. I apologize, Brian, if that's out of your rotation. First, a study that Minetta Transportation Institute published last year with research done by San Jose University. It says road diets work well in some cases, however, they are not without concern. Travel times may increase. Traffic on road dieted streets may switch to nearby side roads, thus increasing traffic volumes and speed on roads potentially less suited to handle such traffic. The study goes on to say there is limited empirical evidence on the effects of these conversions. Also, the metrics and quality of data collected is all over the place. A number of studies evaluate only safety outcomes. Many studies only look at the road diet segment, omitting impacts from side streets. The studies are not formally published and archived, and it makes it difficult to access. In short, transportation planners have limited high-quality resources to review when they want to understand how road diets actually perform in practice. Second, a study through Michigan State University states that commonly quoted threshold of 20,000 ADT for consideration of a road diet should be lowered to 10,000, and more importantly, a volume per hour per direction of 500 is a guideline to not exceed. On Bremer Avenue, we're well in excess of those guidelines. Finally, a report presented to the faculty of the Graduate School of the University of Texas studies the history of traffic calming. It studies delays by emergency response time and the negative effects that traffic calming have on the environment. We have data that shows emissions in Grand Rapids, Michigan are up 19% after that city was road dieted. The data from road dieted Los Angeles is showing us that air quality is not good. Residents say they can see the air with their own eyes. And science backs this up, which shows us that we have the worst air quality in the last 90 days that we've had in 20 years, and it goes before they even measured it. I reached out to the Cato Institute. Economist Randall O'Toole has done a great job in assisting us. He's a senior fellow at Cato and a transportation policy expert who stated, the reality is when you slow down traffic, you reduce emergency response times. It's very critical if somebody has a heart attack that emergency services get to them within so many minutes or they're dead. Studies have been shown and have been verified that when you use traffic calming to supposedly make streets safer for pedestrians, you're going to kill 30 people due to delays in emergency service response for every pedestrian's life you save. So we have the Iowa DOT saying we didn't do a study on it. I think emergency response will be okay, to a leading economist giving us a 30-to-1 death ratio. So I really think we need to come together as a community and have a discussion. And let's come together as neighbors and discuss how we can make our neighborhoods better for everyone based on data and empirical evidence. Let's listen to citizens because it's our citizens that make our neighborhoods great. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Food for thought. Any other public comments? Items not on the agenda. Moving on, consent calendar consists of 5 items. Number 1, a pay request from Stanley Consultants Incorporated for the Cedar River Parkway East improvements 2018 for the amount of $39,609.61. Class C liquor license for the Beach House, a Class E liquor license for Fairway Stores Incorporated, number 561. Temporary premise location for Wartburg College's special Class C liquor license, and the cash disbursements for September 2018. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Consent calendar is approved, 5-0, 2 absent. Regular business, item number 1. is approving the purchase of a 2019 pumper truck from Reliant Fire Apparatus of Slinger, Wisconsin for the Waverly Fire Department. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move Resolution 18144, a resolution to fix a date for,
Nope.
is that the wrong one? I am so sorry.
Number
Fire
one.
truck.
Approving the purchase of a 2019 pumper fire truck from Reliant Fire Apparatus of Slinger, Wisconsin for the Waverly Fire Department within 120 days for the $3,089 discount for a final cost of $413,818, which includes a not-to-exceed amount of $10,000 for additional loose equipment, with all expenses being split 50% city and 50% rural fire board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion?
I assume the Rural Fire Board has approved this or will be approving it. If they
Danny-
don't approve
Danny,
it,
would
this
you-
doesn't happen.
Have some words of wisdom for us?
Good evening, council. Yes, we met with the Rural Fire Board last Thursday. We had our annual meeting, and it was approved by them, the same resolution that's before you tonight. So they have reviewed it, and they have approved it.
Okay. Good, thank you.
How do the bids get reviewed by the city? I mean, I'm assuming Denny and your team are looking at all of that and are the experts on it, but what happens beyond that? Anything?
The fire department set the specs, sent it out for bids, received the bids, reviewed them, and then submitted them to James for our recommendation.
And then, James, you guys more or less, I mean, what do you do?
I actually met with the chief and a couple members of Rural Fire. We went through the bids, the specs, made sure it was in line with what everybody wanted, and we took the lower of the two that met those requirements.
Thanks.
This is to replace a 1989 pumper?
It's 30 years old, so yes.
That doesn't meet all the rules and regulations anymore.
NFPA standards have changed, but we keep our apparatus 30 years.
So Chief, do you sell the used one then?
I'm sorry.
Can you sell the used?
We will put it out, yes, for sale. There isn't much market for that style of truck, but we will put it out for sale.
Point of clarification, the 120 days that are referred to in the motion, is that delivery?
The 120 days, for clarification, is, as it's spelled out in the proposal, 120 days before we receive the apparatus, we need to pay for the chassis.
Correct. And the build time is about 12 months?
Yeah, 10 to 12 months, yep. We're hoping closer to 10.
I suppose this is a question for James. So this is the city portion is a budgeted item.
Correct.
Are we under budget? Are we odd budget? Over? Where does this fit relative to the amount that was budgeted?
We had budgeted $225,000 plus a little bit for equipment, and so you're going to be looking at $206,500 plus the equipment, so we are under.
Good.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All those in favor of purchase of a 2019 pumper fire truck from Reliant Fire Apparatus, say yes.
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 Opposed? We are purchasing a new fire truck by a vote of 5-0, 2 absent. Thank you. Next item, Resolution 18144, a resolution to fix a date for a public hearing on the proposal to issue hospital revenue bonds or notes in one or more series in a principal amount not to exceed $37 million for the purpose of financing capital improvement projects for the benefit of the Waverly Health Center. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move approving Resolution 18-144, a resolution to fix a date of November 19, 2018 at 7:00 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the proposal to issue hospital revenue bonds or notes in one or more series in a principal amount not to exceed $37 million for the purpose of financing capital improvement projects for the benefit for Waverly Health Center.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion?
I
thought it might be helpful if staff could talk through again what the kind of relationship and process is, with having the hospital with its own board and making, some of these key decisions, which of course they have responsibility for, and how that comes back to us again and what we have responsibility for.
Mr. Addy is here if he'd like to, either
Go
way.
ahead and take a shot at it. Jim can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Just go ahead and make one. The confidence is overwhelming. When it comes to the overall operation of the hospital, as you said, they have a board, they have their own personnel, they kind of manage their own entity in a sense, so they are really autonomous. We are the parent company loosely when it comes to financing bonds, et cetera. So while we are not going to be using city funds, quote, to pay back these bonds, we still have to authorize and approve the sale, et cetera, because it affects our bonding capacity, so to speak. Mainly in this issue, it's our bank qualification. Anything over 10 million in a year, there's no advantage for smaller local banks to bid on them anymore. The guidelines that they get that help to make it beneficial for them does not exist. Since we were well beyond 10 million on our own, the timing was good to put this on top. Otherwise, you'd have multiple years of not having that benefit for your rural banks or your smaller banks or your local banks to bid on that with advantage. So that's part of the reason this was done at this close hour, was to just, if we're already over, let's go way over. And so, but again, this will not be city funds, so to speak. It does not affect our bonding capacity, our 80% threshold. None of that is a factor here. One, because they're revenue bonds, and two, they are a separate bond for the hospital itself. So while we do oversee some of the financial piece of this at a very high level, the detailed day-to-day is completely run by the hospital board, Mr. Addy, et cetera. And so it is technically us, but it's not really us. It's the best, I guess, I explain it. Jim,
Yeah, when the
please
hospital is licensed, we were licensed at the Secretary of State's office as a city hospital. Now, as James said, there's no extension of liability back onto the city for our borrowing. However, as a city hospital, we still have to come here and ask for permission. This is different, just as a quick clarification, than the loan that we asked for about 2 years ago. That was the USDA loan, and that's what we will be outlaying at the completion of the project. We need dollars for construction loans to pay for it as we go along. The $37 million is what we were awarded from the USDA, and we had recommendation from council to ask for the same amount in construction loans. Our anticipation is that we won't be spending that much, but to ask for more and then only draw less. Maybe just to piggyback on one other comment that James made, if we do this by the end of the year, we feel that tactically it's the best thing for both the hospital and the city. We will then have all of our financing sewn up, and we will not impede on any of the city or the utilities projects in the coming years.
That's a good point. Utilities also is a similar structure, affected the
Right.
same way.
Yeah.
So you guys have done, quite frankly, the work up to this point, and we're piggybacking on that work, and which is why we're trying to move to get this completed by the end of the year. Just a couple of quick reminders. We do not tax like 54 of the other hospitals, but as a city hospital, once again, we do need to come here, and just as one more reminder, our borrowing extends zero liability back onto the city. If we were to, God forbid, default, they can only come after us for our assets.
Okay. That was one question I had, and then the other one, I mean, just theoretically, I think we've always had a great partnership, and just want to make sure we're all understanding how we connect when we make decisions like this. But what if we didn't give permission?
If you don't give permission, then we do not have the ability to have enough money to move forward with our building plans.
Okay.
I understand that this doesn't have any impact on the city's liability or our bonding capacity, but is there any potential whatsoever in this impacting our bond rating? This has nothing at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Any other questions for James or?
The construction that you're looking to do, you've been in the planning process now 4 or 5 years, if not longer, and
So depending on who you ask, I believe that we've been planning for a new emergency room since 1965. It was built in 1964. We have been hard and heavy at it for about 2 years. If you remember when we came to you with the USDA funding, we had talked about how there was a plan on the table that started really at an astronomical number, and we've been trying to chisel that down. When the USDA came to us and really said, look, rates are not going to be as low as they are. If you're going to do something, now's the time. And so that's when we really jumped on trying to update the facilities. Emergency room, clinic capacity, and really an aging infrastructure. At one point, they told us that we have a boiler in the basement that that we can get the same output in something the size of a suitcase. And so we do have a lot of old infrastructure that we're still working on. We do have about $2 million of upgrades that we would be doing regardless of a project. But we do believe that a new emergency room is definitely needed. When we come back at the November board meeting, if we're granted the public hearing, we will have more details on the plans. We are actively trying to drive those down to the point where we will have the construction documents. We don't anticipate having those until early next year, but we'll have the bubble diagrams knowing where everything's going, the square footage, and setting up those appropriate adjacencies.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments, questions?
Just kind of a side comment, I don't know if folks saw the announcement, but Jim is honored by the Iowa Hospital Association as a Young Executive of the Year, so I think the hospital is in good hands.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So just one more question, kind of out of curiosity. We're looking at a $37 million, say, loan, for lack of a better word. How long would it take to pay this off?
Sure. So we have in the two parts, so the construction loan, we will pay off with the USDA loans once they essentially backfill us at the completion of the project. The terms of that note are 3% fixed for 40 years. Okay, and so we actually tried to get in at closer to 2.3%. That was the absolute floor of the USDA the USDA rates. Unfortunately, they did rise while we had a new Secretary of Agriculture that delayed our award. So that's the bad news, is that it's a lot of money and it's a long period of time. The good news is that the hospital has actually been accustomed to paying down debt in a particular fashion, one way or another, for quite some time. And our payments will significantly reduce, and we're really taking the tactic where the rest of the money we're going to be kind of shoving away under the mattress, so that we can either make the decision to pay down that loan faster, or if we need to go back for more infrastructure, use that money for that next phase or phase 2 of a construction. Our thoughts being that we probably won't be borrowing at 3%, and that's essentially what we'd be doing. Sure. So one of the tenets of this project was get the hospital to where it needs to be to meet to be the hospital that we want to be, and at the same time not hamstring the city or the next administration with unnecessary debt. That was something that I was afforded when I came here. We're actually debt-free right now, and that's made, quite frankly, my life and our administration's life much easier. We've been able to be much more nimble and try to come after a project of this scope.
So in some sense, worst case scenario, 40 years.
That is correct.
Okay.
I sit on the foundation board, and I just feel it's the hospital, of the way that we are set up in a proactive community as Waverly is such a great reflection of who we are as a whole community. And so I just wanted to add my 2 cents.
Very good. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I've been a patient and used that facility various times. Nothing real serious, but I can't imagine the community being without the facility that it is and will become even better. So. Roll call vote, please.
Franco.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Resolution 18-144, setting a public hearing to issue hospital revenue bonds is approved, 5-0, or 5-2-0, 2 absent. Resolution 18-145, a resolution setting dates of a consultation and a public hearing on a proposed amendment number 2 to the Waverly Unified Urban Renewal Plan in the city of Waverly, state of Iowa.
And when you read the resolution, read the moved by, or the moved part, because it's actually number 3. The language, it's amendment number 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So
amendment number.
in the resolution itself, it has the right one. You read it right, it was just the wrong number.
Okay, very good. I'd entertain a motion, please.
I would move Resolution 18-145, a resolution setting October 22nd, 2018 at 8 p.m., not a.m., I'm assuming.
No, it's
in the
8 a.m.
council chambers. A.m. in the council chambers, okay. As the date, time, and place for a consultation with taxing authorities, and setting November 19th, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on a proposed amendment number 3 to the Waverly Unified Urban Renewal Plan in the city of Waverly, Iowa. Did I catch everything?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Bill, I assume you were going to fill us in.
Yeah, the consultation is with the superintendent of schools and a representative from the county. And so I made an appointment with them. So that's.
At 8 a.m.
At 8 a.m., right. The public hearing is the required thing that has to go through at a council meeting, so.
This is to remove and add some units out of the TIF districts, is that?
Right.
Okay.
We're putting a couple properties back in, and we're taking some properties out for the purpose of, that are not developed now, for the purpose of in the future, putting them back into the plan so we can start the 20-year sunset over again for properties that never did get developed, as opposed to ones that have been are being redeveloped. There's a couple downtown that would be potentially redeveloped, and that's well, I guess it's the theater and another property that's in the old Spon and Rose building in that lot behind that. So that would help potential developers coming in if we could use the increment from that to help with redevelopment of those properties. The other properties I think are undeveloped, the ones that we took out and would put back in.
I might be just incredibly dense tonight, but I'm really having a hard time following the purpose of taking properties in and taking properties out of the TIF district, on how that affects what the city does, how that affects the landowners, what the purpose of moving those in and out. I don't know if tonight's the time to have that discussion, or we're better off having that on the 19th, but I would like to have some clarification on just exactly how that affects these properties and what the policy is behind putting properties in and out. And on a related matter, I think I would probably suggest to the mayor that maybe one of our study sessions, having a study session simply on TIF financing and how it works and how the city is set up to handle that and how we're using it, would be an appropriate use of one of our study sessions, because I know enough about it to be dangerous, and I would prefer to, before I vote on a motion like this to approve the final reading, that I actually understood what I was voting on.
Well, I can do I'll do a quick explanation now, and then I can do another one at the public hearing. What we're doing is amending the urban renewal plan. The urban renewal plan is where you add properties to the plan that could be developed, and you could use TIF increment financing to help with that, with those projects that would be in those areas. So we're adding to an area. Once you add a property to the area, it isn't necessarily in a TIF ordinance where you capture increment. You have to do another action, so you have to do an ordinance after that. So the plan is the basic thing that you have to have the property in there before you can spend money in that area for those properties. What would happen 20 years ago when they did this in 1999 for the plan is they put everything in that they put in the plan in the TIF ordinance from the start.
Okay.
What you generally do is wait until you have a project, a potential project, and then you take the property that's in the plan already, and then you put it in the TIF ordinance, and you start capturing increment from the base value for 20 years. What happened in this situation is the properties that are vacant, we never captured really anything because it started with vacant land and 20 years later it's still vacant land. So what we want to do is start the 20 years over because we missed that opportunity. So we're putting it back, we'll take it out and then put it back in and start the 20 years over. The downtown properties are a little different. When you have a downtown property that was put in 20 years ago, the idea was that there would be increment from that. Well, what's happened over the time is those really haven't been redeveloped over that period of time because they existed when you put them in, but they haven't been redeveloped. So if they're going to be redeveloped now, what you do is you take them out and have to start over the 20 years. You have to start over by putting them back in the plan and then putting them back in the ordinance. That way we can capture the increment that's generated from the redevelopment of those properties.
And the purpose of it, the general purpose is that you take the hoped for increase in property value and increase in taxes and somehow use that, provide that as assistance for the property owner to develop that property?
That's correct. And what we do is, it isn't a guarantee because we've put it in the ordinance or in the plan, and even in the ordinance, because we have to have an agreed upon development agreement that the city council votes on as to whether or not we do a project or give incentives to that particular development.
Okay.
So we still judge the particular project by what is proposed by the developer. And if we don't feel it's necessary to put money in, we don't necessarily certify it for in the ordinance.
Well, I have a lot of questions, and it might be more appropriate for me just to sit down in your office
Sure.
and visit with you about it. But for example, in the building that I have an ownership interest in, which is the old library building that we purchased from the city, obviously was not on the tax rolls because the city owned it. Well, a significant part of the taxes that we pay are going into, are designated on the tax sheet as TIF taxes, which I assume are going into a fund somewhere.
Right.
And those are obviously not being used to finance specific projects, but just into a general fund?
Well, actually, it goes into a TIF, a tax increment fund. And that fund is, we have to certify every year whether we have debt that we can pay off with money from that fund. So if we have projects within any of our TIF districts, within our urban rural plan areas, then we can use those funds if they're there, if there's enough. And if we don't use them, we return them so that they go back to all the taxing authorities. So
does the city ever use that TIF money for a project without some general improvements and not for a specific project that's being proposed? I'm talking like, water, sewer, streets, whatever.
Generally speaking, you have two kinds. You either do an infrastructure project that helps the urban renewal area that you're working with, so you're putting in water mains or you're doing things of that nature in that area. And then that's just you just generally capture the increment and you generally pay for a project that's in that urban renewal area. That's kind of a general one. Then you make a very specific one, like the CUNA building development agreement that we worked. And we actually look at just the increment that's being created on the particular property that goes in. And they don't, we just capture what that increment might be and use it as a rebate. And we have specific criteria that we look at in terms of whether or not the council wants to approve that kind of an agreement. And a lot of times, especially in the downtown area, such as the theater building or perhaps the Spawn and Rose site, if that's going to take a substantial amount of redevelopment, and it's not always, you put a lot of money into those things, very risky type of situation, there may be a need for the city to participate by using increment rebates in those situations, just because otherwise it may not get done.
Right.
We try not to be the first dollars in, we try to be the last dollars in, but it sometimes is the difference between a project being done and a project not being done.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we have the ability to do these kinds of projects or bring them before you And if we don't have it in there with 20 years to go, we don't have the ability to even bring it to you. So this really just gives us the opportunity to bring it back at the appropriate time. And we're following the rules for amending our plan. If the plan is amended in November, then what happens is that would be the first reading of our ordinance change for anything we would automatically go ahead and add in. It may not be the same properties that are added into the ordinance at that time.
Okay.
Bill, could you talk a little bit too about how it could be and why it is that you're suggesting that 3 properties that we just took out of the plan in 2017 are now being added?
Because those are the
Back
ones we
into
took
the
out
plan.
back then to do what we're doing now, to add them back in. And we're probably not going to add all 3 of them. The city parcel, that 3-acre parcel, we don't have a project for that, so we won't add that back in. We do believe it's very likely that we could be putting the Walker and Tri-B property back in, but that's also, that's one of those things we're still kind of waiting, but we think it's a good timing to do it at this point in time.
So that's kind of the difference between the plan and the ordinance.
Right.
That these are going in the plan, but they may not end up in the ordinance.
Right. We anticipate they will because we are planning on the ordinance having those 2 properties put back in and not the city parcel. But that's why there's a difference between what we put in the plan. There's no reason not to put the city parcel, that 3-acre parcel, in the plan, because then we can just add it to the.
Because if you think about it, the TIF, the urban renewal area would have to be updated. That takes 3 meetings, a month and a half. Then you have to go through the ordinance being updated. So you could delay a project 3-4 months. This way we can be a little more nimble and respond in a relatively short time if a project comes forward and it needs, again, those last hours in to make it viable, those type of things.
Right.
Well, the TIF district was established initially to help finance the South Industrial Park, if I remember right.
The urban renewal plan area was established, and then everything was put in TIF in order to capture increment.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to get those properties back in so we can capture increment over 20 years that actually have increment as opposed to something that didn't get developed.
I think to Rod's question on the TIF fund having a balance, again, within reason, that seems to be a good idea so that we don't end up having to borrow if we have a larger project, those type of things.
And we use the TIF funds that we need to pay on our debt because that's how we use TIF money is to pay on TIF eligible debt. And if we don't need all of the money that's collected, it gets returned, so it gets distributed to the other taxing authorities.
So it's in our best interest to use up the TIF money rather than have to return it to the other agencies.
It depends on what you're using it for. You want to use it for good things because otherwise it goes back and some of that goes to the school and the county.
Okay.
So we don't want to use things unnecessarily. That's why we make good decisions about what TIF projects we support.
Well, so what stood out to me was this extension of 8th Street Southwest to 29th Avenue with an estimated cost of $2 million. And, that kind of made my eyes bug out a little bit because, we have a lot of other infrastructure projects going on. We've got, Cedar Lane, we've got the Green Bridge, we've got the Cedar Parkway Bridge, we've got 4th Street. But what you're saying is that this TIF dollars could not be applied to those projects. Or am I wrong?
Well, sometimes we do have projects that are TIF eligible. There was part of the Cedar River Parkway that was in the TIF district that made it eligible. Yeah, so we had the ability. We did that on the dry run. We had part of the improvements on 4th Street were eligible for TIF. And so you kind of look at where it's eligible. And the only reason we put the 8th Street in is you have to have a placeholder for a project. So saying it's $2 million doesn't mean it's a $2 million project. It's probably closer to a $1 million project, but we don't know what kind of infrastructure needs and water detention. If you put it at $1 million and it's $1.5 million, you have to amend it to go to $1.5 million. So we usually put it up higher than what we expect it to be because that's just really your limit. It doesn't mean you're specifying that for that project.
And we would be revisiting that in the 2 other steps that you'd outlined earlier anyway. Anything, right?
Anything we do for a project would have to be approved, and we would approve the project separately as far as what the dollar amount is.
Well, that's kind of one of my concerns is there's a number of times where it seems like a project comes before us where it's already been in motion for 6 months, or, we've already had bids, we've already had, designs, and by the time it comes to us, it's like, well, we might as well just check off on that. So I want to make sure that this isn't like the first step sneaking in, and then in 6 months you're going to say, well, you already approved that.
No. And we don't have anything right now on this particular area. We just know that to develop the Walker property in the area behind Walmart in the future, it's going to need access. And you're going to need to extend that street either from the north to south, all the way to 29th, or even part of the way to another cul-de-sac. So there's some limited project that could be done. We just have to name it so that we can use it from the plan.
Okay, good discussion. Shortened our study session by 30 minutes. Any other questions, comments? Roll call vote, please.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Resolution 18-145 on the setting a public hearing for a proposed amendment on the TIF district is approved, 5-2 absent. Resolution 18-146, a resolution approving an amendment to the development agreement approved in Resolution 14-100 between the Waverly Hotel Group LLC and the City of Waverly. Would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 18-146, a resolution approving an amendment to development agreement approved in Resolution 14-100 between the Waverly Hotel Group LLC and the City of Waverly to reduce the required number of average full-time employee equivalents from 9 to 8 to qualify for tax rebates.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
I seem to recall that this had come up before. Am I being...
No, it came up when you approved the rebates that were paid last year. And what we presented was the fact that when they submitted all the numbers, the average full-time equivalents for the year was about 8.3 or 4. And we explained at that time that really that it was the downtown development that we were incenting in this situation, as opposed to necessarily a large number of great paying jobs. And so we did have our form did provide for FTEs and employees numbers, so we put those in. And it was based on, the group, the LLC that owns this, they weren't going to be, there was a company that was going to manage for them, and they just estimated the 9. And you're talking about 20 to 25 maybe workers that, depending on what they need for part-time help. So it was really difficult at that time, and the numbers were so close. Rather than come back, and it came back the same way this year, about 8 point something. So we thought, rather than do this every year, we just reduce it to 8, and they feel pretty comfortable with 8 from now on, at least 8. And they're doing well. We can see their hotel tax coming in, and so we know that they're increasing their returns every year. So it isn't because they're not doing well that they don't have employees.
So basically, the last time that this was approved, it was approved just for that 1 year, and now we're changing the contracts. We don't have to revisit this each year.
Correct.
We didn't want to penalize them for being efficient. When they thought it was 9, they were able to do it with less. We didn't want to have them add another body just to get the rebate for the 9. It just made more sense to let them be efficient and continue forward.
Like Bill said, and I think this was brought up before too, was that the purpose of this was for the economic development, not necessarily for adding a whole lot of employment.
Part-time
It was kind of a development agreement. So.
Absolutely.
Well, it was articulated as part of the goal, but it wasn't, I think, the main impetus for it, yeah.
Well, as I recall, the 9 FTEs was kind of a best guess. It wasn't really based on hard numbers. So if they, overestimated the number of jobs they'd be required, I don't think we should penalize them for being off by 1 FTE.
I guess the other thing I brought up in Economic Development Commission too was, in my mind, one of the concerns we had was this project going to rob rooms from others in the community. And according to our hotel tax, that hasn't happened. So this was basically increasing the number of rooms not shifting them around between the providers and that type of thing. So from that basis, I think it's exceeded what its original goal was. We got the increment increase in a facility that was at one time a furniture store with leaky roofs to a real nice hotel, and they're bringing in the tax base also. So.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Rafi?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Resolution 18146, approving amendment to the development agreement with the Waverly Hotel Group, carried 5-2 to 0, 2 absent. Resolution 18147, a resolution approving an agreement with Pit Pros Incorporated of Sway City, Iowa for the hauling, incorporation, and/or application of treated biosolids sludge from the Waverly City's water pollution control facility, and authorizing the Director of Public Works to approve additional services to clean the sludge storage tank.
I'll make a motion approving Resolution 18147, a resolution approving an agreement with Pit Pros, Inc. of Sway City, Iowa for the hauling, incorporation, and/or application of treated biosolids from the city's water pollution control facility for the fee of .0425 cents per gallon for an estimated cost of $25,500, and authorizing the Director of Public Works to approve additional services to clean the sludge storage tank.
I think it's actually dollars.
Where?
Well, it's $0.0425, not cents.
It's,
No.
no, I don't think so.
Cents.
4.25 cents per gallon.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. But
Is there a second?
0.04 cents, so.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Is there a second?
Did we get the motion correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will second it.
It's, yeah,
Motion made and seconded.
Second.
it's as it's written there.
I'm with you.
Okay. That's really dollars, okay. Okay.
Council discussion. Questions for Mike or anyone? I think this is an annual event, if I remember right. Nothing to celebrate, but at least
It's better to hold it.
It's, yeah, I
better.
just- overall, I think I would
Celebrate it.
It's all right, then it-
roll call vote, please.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Resolution 18147 carried, 5-2 absent. Resolution 18148, a resolution accepting the public infrastructure of sanitary sewer main installation for the Omni Lot 40 development.
I'll move approval of Resolution 18-148, a resolution accepting the public infrastructure of the sanitary sewer main installation for the Omni Lot 40 development.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
So this is in place and working, it's like been approved, it's been checked over. So I remember some time ago, we had George Miller in here who was having issues with the construction right along his property line. Was that related to this sewer going in, or was that the development going in next to him?
That was the rear of one of the buildings that was adjacent to his property.
Okay.
That's been resolved, taken care of, it looks great.
Okay, but this was not a related project?
It may have been in the general area because that's about the line that would have been, but actually when that came up, it was more of the access onto his property and things as opposed to being, that the line was on his property.
It does not relate to the public sanitary sewer.
Okay.
It may have had some effect from the service line that was installed, but has nothing to do with the public sewer.
Right, there's a difference there.
Any questions, comments? Roll call vote, please.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Bergen?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Resolution 18148 approved, 5-2 absent. Resolution 18149, a resolution approving a minor subdivision to eliminate a portion of the platted right-of-way of Tagalong Drive and to adjust the lot lines of lots 133 and 134 of Centennial Oaks Golf Club Edition.
And when you do the motion, it's Tagalong Trail. We made an error there.
Okay.
I will move approval of Resolution 18-149, a resolution approving a minor subdivision to eliminate a portion of the platted right-of-way of Tagalong Trail and to adjust the lot lines of lots 133 and 134 of Centennial Oaks Golf Club Edition.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
I wasn't able to be at that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and the supporting documentation from staff, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but sounds a little lukewarm. And so I'm just wondering if somebody could, and the minutes aren't out yet for us to read from Planning and Zoning, could somebody give us an update? Oh, we just got it tonight?
There's an update from Rachel.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I believe the explanation is that there was a half cul-de-sac and then a road going to the north that was platted, and the owner of the property, the parcel to the north, has plans to develop a house on that north property that would basically be not accessing this road, because that property owner owns all the way to 11th. So they own both those parcels that are above this Tagalong Trail area. Based on the fact that they have that connection, they can make their own connection, their own street connection. We decided to allow that not to make them do that connection to that road and just create a cul-de-sac. We did, in fact, though, require that the sewer connection and the water connection from Tagalong Trail be extended to the property line so that it can be accessed by that property owner to the north.
What was I'm sorry, I just didn't look at this, I didn't realize, I guess that was here, but what was the vote by the Planning and Zoning Commission? Does it say? I don't see that here.
Doesn't say.
There was only 5 members there Thursday night, and I believe it was 5-0, is what I understand.
Well, I guess I would tend to trust the opinion of planning and zoning, which is, what we have them there for. My concern, I guess, would be if we went ahead and approved this, and at some point in the future, the owner of that property decided they were going to subdivide or do something else, and we don't have I guess the sewer would be available, which would be probably why that was continued on, but are we going to have a problem not having the road there?
It's probably not optimal, but it's not one of those things that we can control what the owner does with their properties to the north, because they're not subdividing it at this time. So if they wanted to build on there, they can build on there. What we've done is allowed for a large enough connection for water and sewer that it could serve multiple homes to the north.
And
so
it's not a main, it's their service line.
It's a service line, but they could actually use that for multiple.
They're slightly upsized in the event that they wanted to have a few homes that would provide water and sewer service. They would have transportation access off of 17th Street or
11th
Street southeast.
There's actually a roadway already there, but they also own the other parcel that the 19 and 20 parcel are owned by the same landowner. So we would require some different things for that if that was to be subdivided, including the access off. But we were really just basically trying to get sewer and water back to that particular area for that, off that street without having a stub street just end at the fence line.
But you'd still have a cul-de-sac there then and not a stubbed street.
Right, you have a cul-de-sac, right.
Yeah.
And that would allow the developer to have, those 2 lots would be somewhat larger than if that road that stub street wasn't in there.
It's slightly smaller because we have an easement through there for the two lines.
Yeah.
Now, they can put plantings and things over that and lawn, as long as they don't obstruct working on the service line that goes through there. This was kind of a compromise. I mean, if you're doing this from the start, you may not have done it, but we inherited what was here already, and then there was no guarantee that the north property owners would ever work with this, and we believe that the development to the north can happen because they have their own access from 11th. So they could do a limited lot. We'd look at this more of an estate type situation where you'd have over an acre probably per lot, if not much more than that. And maybe not only, there may be only one house there.
So it looks like there's a house or something there on that number 19.
Yes.
Is that, so where is that in relationship to where you're talking about?
Well, my understanding is that may be removed, that house, and then there'll be a new house built on that parcel.
One or two?
One.
And then one on 20?
Nothing on 20.
Nothing on 20 yet?
I mean, potentially in the future, but nothing on 20.
I thought there was a mention of two homes, two new
No.
homes. Okay.
No. But they could do that with the water and sewer service line that they have. They could do more than one.
So who actually brought this to us, to planning and zoning? The tag-along trail people or the north people?
This started with tag-along trail people, the ones that own that development, those lots. They want to finalize the construction documents for the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And we looked at how that would happen at the end with that stub street going north that may be perpetually just a stub street. And we agreed to change that because with discussions with the north property owner, we want to make it work for both.
So you approached them and said, this is what we're thinking about doing south of you. Will that work for whatever you're planning to do in the future?
Right, and finding out what their desires were for what they were going to do. Their plans do not involve connecting to that street, so we thought it was kind of a waste to put that street stub to the fence line if it's not going to be used.
How will this affect, I know we always try to have looped water mains and that type of thing. How will this affect that in long-range planning?
Yes, there's a map on on their screens.
I don't know.
Okay, so I'm sure you're all here involved in 1999 when the golf course was, well, I was, so I remember the discussions. And one of our concerns at the time was they originally did not want to do a connection, but we have some restrictions in our municipal design standards that we like to see dead-end streets limited to no more than 500 feet in length. And so we had undeveloped land to the north or minimally developed, and so we said, well, from a planning perspective, we can elbow the street, stub, street, water, sewer, all utilities to this land to the north that it may develop. Well, here we are 19 years later. We have a new owner of the land. We were looking at some other options. Maybe we could actually connect this cul-de-sac and this cul-de-sac, connect these two together so that we'd eliminate cul-de-sacs. That would be the best of all worlds, I guess. We did not have favorable discussions with parties involved, and so at that point, it became apparent, as Bill said, with discussions with this landowner, that they had no desire or need for having this stub street. So in that respect, it was deemed better to actually develop a full cul-de-sac that would make it easier to turn around. What makes it very difficult for public services is when you have a situation like this, and then we have driveways that are installed by the property owners right up next to like the fence, and that's not a good situation for public services. Regarding the water main, yes, water main connects through. There is also a mandatory sidewalk connection that goes through from connecting these two developments together. So we do have a looped water main system that will be developed with this. We will also have pedestrian connectivity through. So we see it as a good thing from a community development standpoint, that if we can't have the roads connected, at least we have neighborhood connectivity through pedestrian accommodations. So as Bill indicated, the situation where we are in 2018 is we went back, looked at what the kind of intent was in 1999 and said, well, things are very different today, and we now actually have development taking place. Tag-along trail here was considered phase 5 of the Centennial Oaks Golf Course project. So here we are 19 years later. It's actually going to be developed, and we looked at how to make it the best development possible in 2018.
Okay, any other questions, discussion?
I just feel a lot more comfortable with this, and you said that there's going to be some neighborhood connectivity there, so you're not just dealing with two areas that just dead end, and there's no way to get people back and forth, maybe not cars, but people back and forth. So I guess my concern here, and I don't have a problem with this, but I have a concern. I guess my concern is I just don't want the city to get, that this would jam us up in the future. So 5 or 10 years down the road, when there are other people on the council and they're saying, how on earth could they have allowed this to happen, that, now we don't have any ability to get people in and out of that area, and the owners want to develop it, and then we have a major issue on our hands.
I'll just tell you that the two cul-de-sacs, they say the Spyglass Hill and the Tagalong, if you connected those, they're right in those lots that would be off of that road. You'd have a lot of road that you really couldn't have lots because they're right where the golf balls get hit during the tee off from that hole. And so it really was an idea to avoid that area where the tee off goes when it goes awry to the left.
Any other discussion?
Mike's explanation was helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very good. Roll call vote, please.
Bergen.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Motion, Resolution 18-149 approved, 5, 2 absent. Resolution 18-152, a resolution approving a contract amendment for additional tree removal for the South Riverside Park Improvement Project, Phase 1.
I'll move approval of Resolution 18-152, a resolution approving a contract amendment for additional tree removal by Crystal Heating and Plumbing of Waverly, Iowa for the cost of $28,750 for the South Riverside Park Improvement Project Phase 1.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
Can Tab or somebody talk about how, it sounds like we're talking about more than just brush, and I didn't have a chance to drive by there.
Dad's eager to.
Yeah, I hope we're not, are we really removing a lot of trees?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
It'd be all the vegetation that's on the riverbank that'd be to the east of the old classic cleaners.
Yeah. And why is that necessary or good?
It would basically open up views of the river for that property, as well as views of the river on Bremer Avenue, because right now it's completely blocked with vegetation.
Doesn't the vegetation make for a nice view?
Not really. That it really covers things up completely. And that was one of the things we talked about in the strategic plan was more river use, and this would enhance the river, I think.
When are we going to start planting more trees? I feel like we've been taking down a lot of trees lately. I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but...
Let's see, we planted 17 trees on September 29th. We planted 80 trees on, I think it's May 30th or something like that this year so far, plus various and sundry others that were not group projects.
Again, a lot of these trees you would probably label as scrub trees anyway.
They are all scrub trees. There's not a worthwhile one in the mix.
One of the problems you have when you have trees that are planted, that are growing on the riverbank, and the roots get undercut or rotted out, and then they fall into the river, and then you've got all of this stuff that you need to clean up. So I think it would be better, and I certainly would highly encourage the planting of trees. I love trees. I don't think we have enough trees, but probably the place for the trees would be on top of the bank rather than along the side. So hopefully the property owners will maybe plant a couple of trees here and there. But I'm sorry, I have a question, Tab, though. The issue that I have when we're cleaning this brush out, it tends to regrow. Is there any kind of proposal or any plans at all that there's some way that we can keep this stuff from coming back year after year, and every 4 or 5 years we have to go in and clean it all out again?
Couple things. We're going to leave the stumps there to help the bank stabilize, because that will help. The root system will still stabilize the bank. Secondly, we have, I think, 3 certified pesticide applicators that specialize in aquatic pesticides, so we will be able to take care of those.
How are these?
Herbicides. Pesticides is the generic name for all of them.
Oh, and Chris had a question.
I just was curious, what do you mean it'll enhance the river use?
Well, right now, there's a couple of goat paths, you might say, where fishermen would go down and walk through the vegetation. This will open it up for people to be easier to get down there. Plus, if you are a kayaker or something like that and you want to go from one side of the river to the other, this will make things a lot easier.
How steep is that? I mean, is
It's
there a
really
fence
steep.
there? I was going to say, how are you going to keep people from falling down it now that there's no brush to block their fall?
Well, the brush isn't going to help you block the fall. There will be some, I'm not going to say guardrails, but there will be a division between that and the rest of the development.
Let me just say, I mean, on the north side in Coleman Park, I mean, you know, a little bit different situation, but there is no brush there. Obviously, it's just riprap, but it has a beautiful view of the river, and I can see where if the brush that's obstructing the view of the river were taken away, we'd have that same kind of view in South Riverside Park and at the development that hopefully is going to go in there. So I think it makes it a much more finished view and keeps it much neater by having that brush out. And my concern is with the erosion, and then also having it come back up again, because we're not going to have any kind of riprap or anything bank stabilizing material there, I would assume.
Not this time.
Yeah, so, I guess that would be my only concern, because that even though it is doesn't look very good, it does have a tendency to kind of hold the bank together. So if that's all cut out, and I know the roots will probably be there for a couple of years, but they'll eventually rot away, that we don't end up having undercutting of the bank in high water, or then having all that stuff regrow.
I mean, some of that will be addressed in the next phases of South Riverside development.
Correct.
I mean, does this change the plans that we already voted on for that park? Because that bank development started south of this.
The trees on that part of the project have been taken care of. That's the reason why we thought we'd piggyback on that contractor to do this work. But that's all done. The rest of it with the building and the walkways and that sort of thing is yet to happen. We are on schedule on those.
So is the brush cutting for this project going to meet where you stopped with the other project? Or is there going to be a clump of stuff remaining between the two?
Well, we didn't clear cut everything on the South Riverside Park project. We opened up views of the river. This one will meet that area just to the fire station, but there's still some brush from the fire station to the south, where we're not planning on anything left on this.
How are these decisions made, Tab?
How are the decisions made?
Yeah, how do you decide, what's best for the bank and what's best for the view and what's best for when you decide to take out brush and trees and things?
We, when the opportunity presented itself, Bill and I and Mike, as well as staff, went over and looked at it to look at the potential, and at that point, we had our HORT people say there's not a tree worth saving in there. So at this, and one of the goals was to open up views of the river, especially with the Bremer Avenue development and the streetscaping and all that sort of thing is going to be happening. We just think this would be a very good enhancement of the whole downtown area by taking these trees out. I've got one staff member that wants to challenge the vegetation on the island in the middle of the river next year because it's not very attractive. But that's how we make the decisions. Like I said, we had the opportunity. We had the contractor already there. He's got the equipment, so we decided to talk to him and get a quote.
I understand. I just also know, one person's view of clean and beautiful, what perspective of a clean and beautiful view is, mowing everything right down to the bank and not having anything there, and another person might have a little bit of a different perspective on it. So I'm hoping you have diverse opinions going into your decision-making. Yeah.
Have we had conversations with the people who are going to be taking over the ownership of the Classic Cleaners property?
We certainly have.
Okay, and they're fully in support of this?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
How far does it go down?
To the fire station.
Oh, okay.
So it's about 2/3 of the block.
And has there been any discussion of them paying for part of this brush clearing to enhance their business?
It's not directly enhancing their business. It's not going to hurt their business, but they are going to put some investment into the building and that sort of thing. So we thought that this would be a good thing for us to do.
So where does this fit in terms of the budgeting? This is money that you have in the budget that's just sitting around waiting for a use, or is this?
We had a good amount of money budgeted for the tree removal and the demolition of the building. That came in very low, so
that was
we're going
the
to
building
add
that
this.
didn't have asbestos abatement, so.
Correct. We did, yes.
One kind of sideline comment or question. I've had a couple people contact me about the RV dump station, short-term, long-term. What's the plan there?
We're working on it. It's closed right now. We will get one up soon.
The line maintenance staff is working on it because they deal with both water and sewer services. They can address that. The location that's being looked at is down by the main lift station at the intersection of Crestwood Avenue and 8th Street Southeast. There's a home that we took down. We created a public parking lot there for the park. And we're looking at developing the RV dump site in that parking facility where we'd have effectively a drive-through situation, 2 driveways for the parking lot so that you'd be able to pull an RV in, utilize the dump site, create a wash site as well. And that's the location that is we're looking at developing yet this year, so it would be available for use come springtime.
Today, they can dump there, there's just not water for flushing and that type of thing? At the current, the old one?
I think it's completely closed. I think we've shut off the sewer from there.
I was thinking that Cedar Bend Park is where people are temporarily suggested to go.
Okay.
Just for clarification, this contract is from Bremer Avenue to the fire station.
Approximately, yes.
Is there anything in the contract to take care of the dead trees and those that are now in the river south of the building that was taken down?
Those are all listed on the vegetation management staff's list.
So the city will be taking those out?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there might have amend the contract somewhere and have Crystal reach the one that's now in the water down at the bend as a result of the last high water. If you haven't seen it, it's out there. It's a whole tree.
Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that one.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Drinkow.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Resolution 18-152 for additional tree removal for South Riverside Park carried 5, 2 absent. Reports from boards and commission. Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, August 2nd, 2018. Received into record. Economic Development Commission minutes, October 14th, 2018. And we received a copy of one for October 9th.
And actually, that's unapproved. We just gave it to you to reference the two things that were on the agenda tonight.
Okay, very good, thank you. Item number 2 is received, senior calendar. I think everyone gets a copy of that. Approved. Received into commission. Staff comments.
I don't believe we have any tonight, sir.
All right, very good. City council comments?
Can I say something?
Yes, Chris, you certainly may.
I don't know. Well, I'm very transparent, so I might be asking for a little trouble, but it's also a point of information as well. You know, one of my big projects right now is at the school, at St. Paul's Lutheran School, and we like being the downtown church and school. I think is kind of a neat position for us. But we have a playground, a peat gravel, fenced-in playground that we did a portion of rubber surfacing under a jungle gym so that it can be inclusive to other children with disabilities. We want to finish that whole thing off so that it is a totally inclusive playground and enhanced with some neat things for STEM, you know, growth and butterfly garden and instrumental things and stuff like that. After hearing the brush thing, I think, do we need to find out if we can do those kind of improvements, or is that just something we can do?
You can do on your own property, yeah.
Thank you, Bill. So moved. Yeah, but I want to say too, we have people at that playground all the time. We're going to put park benches in too, because after school is out, we have community people all the time in that playground and weekends as well. So I feel it's a nice addition to our playgrounds in our community. And as an inclusive playground now, it's a good thing. So just wanted you to know.
Thank you for sharing that facility with public.
Yes, we are very, I mean, if you want to donate on the side, that's okay. We're still raising funds.
Very good.
I'll just remind everybody that it's Wartburg's homecoming this weekend, and there are a lot of things that I think the community in general would enjoy. You know, there's the Renaissance Fair, and there are lots of concerts going on, and of course, football game against Central, and so that's all happening this weekend.
Good.
So once again, I'll be going to a local drinking establishment and invite anyone who wants to come and chat about, you know, anything on the city's agenda or any concerns. I'm planning on going to the Beach House. It's kind of next on my rotation, so I'm sorry that, you know, Mr. Schneider, you know, is going to be leaving his information at the poorhouse. I'll get there one of these days. I actually had talked to Matt Lamos at the East Bramer Diner, saying if he was interested in me utilizing his bar, but sadly they close at 8 o'clock on Monday nights, so he won't be hosting me. Sorry to say. The other thing I'm going to mention is I've got my little I voted sticker. You can vote early in the elections. I would encourage you to vote early if for no other reason than to stop the phone calls. I don't know if you know this, but your vote is private, but whether or not you voted is public record. And all of these campaigns will look and see if you voted, and once you voted, they stop calling you, encouraging you to vote. So if you're interested in cutting down on the number of annoying phone calls you get, I would encourage you to vote early, if only, democracy is good and important and all those things, but if only for your own self-interest, I would encourage you to vote just to stop those phone calls.
Okay, any other council comments? Understand a couple things have happened in the last few days. Mike mentioned on K-Way this morning that the rail trail is now open from one end to the other. They opened up the underpass on the East Bremer Parkway project. 20th Street will be open in the morning. I'm not sure how
They're staging traffic at Ninth Avenue, so general public, please stay away, but it's being flipped around for the residents of Eisenach Village, so still lots of construction activity taking place.
I'm not sure how the transition between the new road grade and the existing road grade of about 5 feet is going to be handled, but I assume they'll...
Gradually.
It'll look great when it's done.
Okay, very good. And Bremer Avenue is coming along in great shape now. Most of the brick is in on the south side downtown, and so things are progressing and people are getting excited about when's it going to be. So that's all I have.
I suppose following up, it seems that the Cedar Lane hole has been filled in, but I see there's a couple of pipes that are sitting out there. Are they for more to that project, or?
No, they, couple things. One, they delivered more pipe than they needed.
Okay.
They ordered more pipe than they actually needed. And then due to concerns over the structural integrity of the manhole, they left, I think, 6 to 8 feet of the brick sewer in place because they were concerned about removing it would compromise the integrity of the manhole. And so that was, they shortened the distance a little bit, and that's why we have at least one of the pieces left over.
Okay. Now, I assume that the gravel is going to stay there until the entire Cedar Lane resurfacing. No, it's going to be paved
part
over?
of our utility patching contract.
Okay.
That contractor should be in later this week or next week.
Okay.
So I believe our contract specifies that all the asphalt utility patch work has to be done by the end of next week. So that would include the Cedar Lane section as well as 3rd Avenue Northeast, where there was, question about, well, when is that road going to get repaired? And so we're going to do a permanent patch on it while we have the discussion with the neighborhood about replacing the water main and street.
Okay. Anything else? I have no further comments. Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor say yes.
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 We are adjourned.